are applying to Harvard Business School this year, do not miss this video. The essays have changed. All former bets are off. It's a totally new game. And in this video, I'm gonna talk you through how to tackle the new Harvard MBA application essay questions. Hello everyone, welcome back to MBA Monday. I'm Angela Guido, the founder of Career Protocol. We coach MBAs to achieve their dreams. That's what we do. It's such big news. I made an entirely separate video about what big news this is and the history of the Harvard application and maybe why things have changed and what it means broadly for the entire application. Please be sure not to miss that video. I'll link it right there so that you can check it out after you watch this one, or maybe even go back and watch that one first, because in that video I'm setting the context for what this change is really about. And today I'm going to tactically walk you through how to approach each and every, because there are 3 of them now, of the new Harvard MBA application essays. I want to start first by talking about your overarching writing process. So, and it's critically important this year because in the old days you had an unlimited word count to tell your story. More recently you had 900 words to tell your story. 900 words is very forgiving. You can make a few mistakes in 900 words. You can waste a couple hundred words, and in the end, you might still end up with a great story. But when the word limit is 300 or 250 words, that is no longer the case. There's a famous quote, I believe it's mostly attributed to Mark Twain, that says, "I'm sorry this letter is so long. It would have been shorter, but I ran out of time." I'm paraphrasing, but the bottom line is, it's a lot harder to write concisely. I probably don't have to tell you that, but what that means for your process is that you need to bake in a ton of time for revision. You're gonna wanna write 3 drafts, 8 drafts, 15 drafts of each of these essays to really land on the version of your story that captures you in your very best essence. And that is still your task here. So first things first, get started early, brainstorm right away, throw a couple of drafts together, write your vomit drafts, as we like to call it, like the first version where you're just getting it out, and then revise, throw it away, start over. You're probably gonna have to try a couple different angles here. I'm expecting us to be doing a lot more revision on these essays with our clients than we used to on the big one, and the big one was a big one. So we were doing, lots of revisions, but I fully expect these to take more because you have so little space and you have to communicate so much in those tiny spaces. So be sure to bake in a revision process. And by the way, if you're interested in having one-on-one coaching and having a guide to take you through this journey to make sure that each of those essays really shows your best self by the time you get to the end, consider working with the Career Protocol team, or consider joining our group coaching program called the Authentic MBA Catalyst Program to join not just all the Career Protocol coaches, but a community of supportive MBA peers to help you write, rewrite, revamp, and perfect these essays so that they are as strong as they can possibly be. That is more important this year than ever in the Harvard MBA application process. So consider, if you want to do that, by the way, click this link, careerprotocol.com/join. We'll also link it down below. You'll learn about what we do, how you can work with us, and you'll get also a ton of valuable free advice if you join our community. So head over and do that right now. Now I'm going to talk about each individual essay question and how you might want to approach brainstorming and structuring your unique response to each essay question. At the very end, I'm going to take a step back and talk about what really matters at bottom in this whole application and 2 key implications that has for how you think about these essays. But let me start with each individual essay first. And I'm going to work my way backwards from the bottom. So if you've looked at the Harvard applications, you've got these 3 essays. You've got the business-minded essay, which is 300-word limit. You've got the leadership-focused essay, and you've got the growth-oriented essay. And I'm going to start with the growth-oriented essay because this one, for most of you, is going to be the easiest to approach. Here it is. Curiosity can be seen in many ways. Please share an example of how you've demonstrated curiosity and how that has influenced your growth. Okay, that is the third question. And it's likely that when you're brainstorming, you might start with this one because it's really the easiest to wrap your head around. The reason it's the easiest to wrap your head around is because this is a single story question. It says, please share an example, one example of how you have demonstrated curiosity and how it's influenced your growth. But the main focus of this essay is that one example of how you've demonstrated curiosity, and you've got 250 words to tell that story, to show them that one experience of you embracing curiosity and learning, and then you'll have a little bit of word count at the end to kind of comment on how that experience influenced your growth, how you've grown, what your attitude is towards growth. You'll want to also tell them what the story means in the context of your life, but you've got a chance to tell one short story here. And let me tell you, 250 words, that is short. So when you're brainstorming for this essay, I encourage you to sort of cast a broad net before committing to a response. Just sit down and ask yourself, what are all the things I've been curious about in life? What are all the things I've invested some time and energy in trying to learn? And just write them all out. Hold nothing back. Everything that comes to mind, write it down. And as you're doing that, you may remember things that you haven't thought about in a really long time. You may already start to notice that there are some anecdotes, some specific examples of curiosity that really pull at your consciousness and make you want to explore them more and talk about them more and think about them more. Trust yourself on this. In the end, you need to choose one example to talk about, but in my opinion, what that example is less relevant than what that example shows about you. So your goal here is to reflect on one story, to pick one example, but you don't need to make that example a blockbuster story. It doesn't have to be a time when you saved the day or you learned something that made all the difference to the whole team. It could be something really, really small. It could be a passion that you've pursued quietly on the side. It might have been something you learned early in life, a time that you were really curious about something early in life, and how that went really shaped how you thought about growth afterwards. So cast a broad net when you're brainstorming for that growth-oriented essay. Think broadly and deeply about all the times in life that you've learned, and then seize on the one. Start with the one. You might try a couple different angles. Remember, revision is key here. So you might try a couple different angles, but start with the one that just like makes you smile when you think about it. Start with the one that you like the most and see where it takes you. So that's, let's call it essay 3. Now let's move up to essay 2. This is the leadership focused essay. What experiences have shaped who you are, how you invest in others, and what kind of leader you want to become? All that in 250 words. Thanks a lot, Harvard. You're probably thinking, so am I. Let me tell you, it used to be that was kind of content that you might put in the whole 900-word essay, but now you've got to do all of that in just 250 words. And so to direct your thinking as you're brainstorming and thinking through this essay, I think the 2 most important pieces of this question are how you invest in others and the kind of leader you want to become. Those are really the fulcrum point of this question. It asks what experiences have shaped who you are. Honestly, even if that were the only part of the question and you had 250 words to talk about what experiences have shaped who you are, you're still not going to be able to go into any kind of depth on any one or more experience in the space that you have. And regardless, the most important part of this question is really about investing in others and defining the kind of leader that you want to be. If you read into what the school says about what they mean about leadership and what it means to be leadership focused, do be sure and check that out before you answer these questions. You'll understand that they have a particular orientation, they have a particular conception of what leadership is, and it entails investing in others and helping organizations succeed. So start your inquiry for this question with those two questions. How have you invested in others? And again, like, just write out a whole list. Like, think about all the times and ways in which you've invested in other people and lay those out for yourself. And then ask yourself this question: what's the kind of leader that I want to become? How do I define leadership? What does leadership mean to me? And in 5 years after my MBA, if I'm succeeding in embodying my vision for leadership, what does that actually look like? Be as concrete as you can in your own imagination, thinking through what kind of leader you hope to become through the Harvard MBA and beyond in your career. Start the inquiry there. And when you seize on a concept or an anecdote of investing in others or an idea for leadership that really touches you and inspires you, start there and build the rest of the essay around that idea. All right, and finally, let's talk about essay number 1, the business-minded essay. Please reflect on how your experiences have influenced your career choices and aspirations, and the impact you will have on the businesses, organizations, and communities you plan to serve. This is the hardest one, guys, because you're being asked to talk about your past in detail, about your experiences and your career choices. Frankly, I don't think you have room to do either one of those justice in 300 words. But you got to do both of those, and you've also got to talk about the impact you want to have on the business world through your career. This one is going to be the hardest to shape, the hardest to construct, and the hardest to serve as a point of differentiation. My guess is Harvard's going to get a lot of word salad on this essay. There's going to be a lot of essays that have a lot of words, but ultimately say nothing. Don't let yours be one of those. Make sure that your essay really says something about you. And so, first things first, you want to read Harvard's definition of what business-minded is. It's a kind of version of word salad itself. Check out their definition of business-minded. And then you can seize on really any one point in this essay to focus on. It can be really about your career choices. You could focus on your aspirations, and the focal point could be the impact that you want to have on the communities that you plan to serve. So as your launching off point for where to really construct the essay, it's up for grabs. It could be really any one of those three things. It could be your career choices, your aspirations, or the impact you hope to have. But the core heartbeat of this essay is really about service. It's that last word, the impact that you will have on the businesses, organizations, and communities you plan to serve. So take some time to think about that. What are the businesses, organizations, and communities you plan to serve, and how? And then work your way backwards to the rest of the essay from there. So these are just the launching off points. These are just a few tips on how to start brainstorming your specific answers to these questions. You're then going to need to write multiple drafts. Like I said, for many people, you're going to want to try one approach and then throw it out and try a different one. That's a really good way to do it. It's always easier to revise when you've got a friend. So really do consider clicking that link below, careerprotocol.com/join. Consider joining our Authentic MBA Catalyst program so that you have other like-minded, inspiring MBAs and coaches helping you every step of the way on your MBA journey so that you don't have to do this all alone. But the last thing I want to tell you before I let you go into the brainstorming minds of your brain and uncover your most meaningful stories in response to these questions is the two core things that are going to shape the best responses to these three questions. And it's two words that begin with the letter V. The first word is values, and Harvard has always valued your values. They've always wanted to know what you're made of, what you're all about, what you prioritize, how you see your position in this world, and the impact that you want to have on it. That's all about your values. It's about what's important to you, how you conduct yourself, and how you go about building this thing called your life. So each of these essays needs to reflect a core value. The last essay needs to reflect the core value of curiosity because they're dictating it. They're saying, if you're not curious, you're not a Harvard kind of person. The last essay needs to reflect a core value of curiosity, but if you tell that story right, it will also reflect many other values in the process. But the two other essays should really cut to the quick of what you're really about as a human being. So our process of discovery is really all about unearthing those core values and giving language to who you are and what you're made of in a way that really inspires you first and then allows you to inspire the admissions committee. So don't skip that step of values exploration and definition. It will make the entire process of answering all of these questions easier, and it will make your essays significantly more successful. So that is the first V word. The second V word is voice. Again, always important in this process. You want to make sure that your essays are alive with your unique voice. No two people have the same voice, the same way of expressing themselves, the same way of thinking about the world and their place in it. And so when you approach these essays, the last thing I want to encourage you to do, beyond the brainstorming tips that I gave you, is to really think about how you can approach answering each of these questions in a way that reflects your natural voice. I'll give you a really basic example. If you haven't noticed from these videos, I tend to think in numbered bullet points. I've always got 3 points that I'm gonna make, and each of those 3 points typically has 2 or 3 subpoints. So if I were gonna approach these essays, it's entirely possible that I might make one of them a bulleted list, because that's how my brain works. I think in terms of what's first, what's second, and what's third. Here are the 3 things you need to know. Number 1, number 2, number 3. I might actually start essay 1 with a bulleted list, because that's reflective of my communication style and my voice. Don't steal that, because you're probably not a bulleted thinker, although you management consultants, you might be. So you decide. But that's just one example of a literally infinite array of ways that you could approach expressing yourself in these essays in a way that captures your unique voice. So don't limit yourself to just telling a direct story or just answering the question directly, and literally really take time and space to bring your creativity and your voice to even the structure and content of how you answer these questions. That is what's going to give you the very best chance to show your best self in these 3 new, very constrained spaces, so that you can add the most value to your application beyond everything else that is critically important. Stats, resume, recommendations, which I talked about again in that other video. Be sure to check it out. It's a brave new world, everybody. Harvard's got a new application. It's like the biggest change in this industry since the last time Harvard changed their question, which was, like 10 or more years ago. So I'm wishing you all the best. As much as I preferred the old question, these 3 new questions do give you a lot of space to really reflect on and get to know yourself better. I hope the tips I've shared with you today give you the chance to do that. If you've been on this channel for a while, you know that I really believe the most important thing you can do for yourself in this process is make it about you. Make it about who you are, what you want, what you're all about. These essays still like they always have, give you the chance to do that in a variety of interesting ways. I hope you'll really take that opportunity. You'll take everything I've shared today and construct your very best Harvard essays. I'm wishing you all the best. If you're not subscribed, please do that right now. And if you like this video, share it. There's not a lot of content out there right now about these new essays. I hope you find this discussion valuable, and if you did, please share this video. It helps more people get to know themselves better and do their best work in this application process. I'll see you right here next week on MBA Monday. Have a great one. Music.